Greetings, Mason Storm here. Two foods to go together really well, broccoli, chicken. One of the best ways to do it is to stuff the chicken with broccoli. And cheese makes it even better yet. Stay tuned, I'll show you how it's done. This is going to be for 2 chicken breasts, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of poultry seasoning, and a quarter teaspoon of something spicy. I got chili powder here. Got about half a cup of grated cheese, cup of broccoli, and my 2 chicken breasts. First step's going to be to prepare our broccoli. So I'm just going to chop it up so that it's nice and small pieces, not overly small, but not so big that when you're trying to fold the breast over, it kind of gets in the way and doesn't really cook right, maybe a little bit crunchy or something. So kind of just a medium, smaller size. You can also go full out and puree it if you want, but it works good like this. So now we're going to prepare our spices. Now I've done it before where I just dumped all the spices into the broccoli, but with the way the broccoli kind of has that sprouty bit near the top, it can kind of clump up your spices. So pre-mixing your spices before adding them to the broccoli, I find gives a superior product in the end game scenario for the most enjoyable consumption experience. It's a little bit tricky to mix the spices, but there we go. And once our spices are all mixed up, we're going to add them to our broccoli along with our cheese. Now I'm just using cheddar cheese with this, but preferably you want to have something a little bit more fancy, a little bit more elegant type of cheese, something with more flavor and more depth, but it does work fine with cheddar. Just kind of throw some in there, give it a little bit of a mixing, and see what your ratio of cheese to broccoli is like afterwards. And if you need more, add more. You know the drill. Okay, now we're going to prepare our chicken. Now one of the secrets that I have for making this style of chicken is you freeze the chicken and then let it thaw out, or freeze it partially so it's a little bit frozen, it's not completely thawed out, and it is just so much easier to cut then because it doesn't stick to the blade and it doesn't slide all over the place. But traditionally you do the flat hand on top and just kind of slide in, but when it's kind of frozen like this, it's like so much easier to do. The chicken kind of holds its shape. It's just, it's my secret. I guess the world knows now, but that's definitely the trick to cutting the chicken, to have perfect stuffed chicken breasts. Now I'm just going to be doing this in the old cast iron pan. I've had really good luck with it. You could preheat your pan and do this, but I like to do it kind of cold. It's just easier to form it. If you're going to do it on a hot one, you want to form it on a plate and then stick it in the pan while it's hot. So now we're just going to stuff it. So one of the tricks when it comes to stuffing it is not to overstuff it. Just kind of put in the appropriate amount that it, might look like there's a little bit too much going on there. It's a lot easier to put too little in, and then when you go to close it up, it's like, well, there's not enough, and then open it up and add more. Whereas if you add too much, it's kind of a pain to clean up, to get rid of the cheese and broccoli mixture. So there we go. Once it's all in there, we just kind of flip it over and fold it in on itself. And what you're going to see on the second one here is that due to the way I cut it, it wasn't folding the greatest, so I just flipped it upside down. That way it had a good covering of the chicken and the broccoli. I'm just going to clean up the pan a little bit, get rid of this excess, and then before we throw it in the oven, I'm going to coat it with a little bit of oil. Now the oil really helps make the chicken nice and juicy and tender. And before we just throw it in the oven like this, it's looking kind of plain, so we're going to do a little bit of spicing. So a little bit of pepper and salt, and maybe top it off with a little bit of paprika just to kind of give a little bit of color. But as far as seasoning goes, you can season it on the top however you want, and it will really make it look a lot more beautiful, a lot more presentable. You could even do the same type of broccoli mixture. If you saved out some of the dry spices and just throw them on the top and then bake it, that would probably be pretty fantastic as well. So I'm going to be doing the high temperature cooking, so I'm going to cook it at 450 degrees for about 20-25 minutes, and then you can test it with a thermometer to make sure it's good and done. And there's also a second technique that I have where after it's done kind of cooking, if you turn the oven off, and then put the chicken back in the oven and you kind of like let it rest while it's like in the oven till the oven kind of cools off. That can really give a unique texture to chicken that can be pretty good at times, and it's something that I like doing. So maybe I'll eat one of them and then let one cool and then eat the other one, and that's twice as good then. By the way, that's how you make your stuffed chicken. At least that's how I make mine. So let me know in the comments below how you make yours. If you make this recipe, try it. Tell me what your thoughts are. If you like my content, like and subscribe. And until next time, stay awesome.